Welcome, everybody, to a special mid-season analysis on the More Rugby podcast. Jay, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. What about yourself? How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Summertime, sun's out. Managing to get down the beach a few times for an early morning swim, which is invigorating. But
I'm so jealous. I've managed to do a couple of evening ones, so I've gone for like a little 5K plod, and then I've managed to get in the sea. But honestly, the dream would be to every morning wake up, go in the sea, and then go to work after that. And I just can barely open my eyes and shove some Weetabix down my face, let alone do anything like that.
Well, I must admit, we were down the beach early this morning. I think we got out, I don't know, about 6:30, 6:45, something like that. And it was proper, the waves, it was really choppy.
Oh, was it?
But it was proper warm in there.
Okay.
But yeah, invigorating, properly invigorating. But yeah, good day, good way to start the day. Anyway.
Start your day on purpose.
That's it. Yeah.
Cool.
As Denny says.
Yeah.
If anybody listening wants to follow Denny and his ethos of start the day on purpose, is a great Instagram site to go to. It's Den Champ. And he champions everybody to get up and get on in the day. Great philosophy. But yeah, we're going to have a bit of an analysis of our season so far. See what points that we've really resonated with us, things that we've learned, maybe things that we've always thought that have been clarified by our guests, who, to be honest with you, all so far have been really insightful. But we'll probably start off and just run through the our games. If you're following us on the podcast, you'll notice that we've done 6 games so far. And the first game, which I listened to actually this week because I knew we were going to do this,
was doing your homework. I haven't done that. I've not done that.
Was the friend of the show and the best first guest we've ever had, Trevor Smacks Smith, who we've got a shout out because he comes and opens up for us so that we can use the clubhouses to run our podcasts every time. Beavering away in the background and always listening. But yeah, he was our first guest, and to be fair, somebody that's not played rugby, boy, did he have the right rugby mindset and philosophy.
I can remember when I first joined the Colts, and we knew about Barry, we knew about some of the other coaches, but there was always this like mysterious like ether around Smacks. I honestly, I wish I could remember who it was, but somebody told me that he'd played for England as a second row, and I've said this to Smacks a couple of times. He's like, "Yep, no, it's true. Keep that rumor going. Tell everybody you see that I have played, in fact, for England in the second row, all up through the ages, and I've played in the Six Nations and everything like that. And I had to stop because I was too good, and that's what he always says. But the amount of when we did that first game with Smacks to kick it off, I listened to a lot of podcasts, but I'd never done a podcast. I know it was the same for you, and it was certainly the same for Smacks, who actually hadn't even listened to that many podcasts. But the amount of messages and people that reached out to me that I knew of or knew particularly well, or people that would just stop me and just say how amazing is Smacks, and just talk about and reminisce, and just listening to him talk, it's actually got a lot of the people that are at uni that I used to play with, that are in their sort of like last years at uni, the nostalgia that it brought back for them, listening to Smacks say the same stuff then that he said 3-4 years ago. And sometimes, you're going beyond that 8 to 8 years for people like James and Baz and stuff like that. It was very much so, brought back so much nostalgia for them. And in the end, got them back into playing because they were like, I miss that feeling. I miss doing that. I've got so caught up with my uni work, I've forgotten about rugby. And I see a lot of them come back. And I was having a really great chat with an awesome little player who I used to play with, Callum Manning, who's an avid listener, and he always messages me and says, love that podcast, gives me some great feedback. He's an awesome guy. So Callum, if you're listening out there, mate, lovely lovely to speak to you recently, and hopes all's well with you. And it's good to see that you got out. Saw on your Instagram you're out playing again, which is ideal. But it's people like that that have been brought back into it because of Smacks, and that first podcast and the messages that we took away from that, I just thought were brilliant.
So people that obviously listen to the podcast but don't know Smacks personally, he's been here for a long time, worked through the Colts, and considering he's, best part of 7 foot tall, the only thing that's bigger than him is his character. And he's the vice chairman, the facilities manager at the club, Wimborne Rugby Club. It runs around him, and actually he brings positivity, he brings vigor, he brings fun to the club. And to be at Wimborne Rugby Club and him not be here, he's noticeably missed. He's had a tough time in the recent years with his health. When we had him on the podcast, he actually touched on that as well, and said how much the club actually helped him through, in the fact that when you're a member of a team and the team needs you, you've got something to get up for. And he said that actually Wimborne Rugby Club gave him a reason to get out of bed and keep going every morning. He's pretty positive anyway. But his ethos around rugby, for somebody who, as we've said, didn't play rugby, his lads came and played rugby at Wimborne, his understanding of the values of the game, they run right the way through.
Oh yeah, big time. Literally in his veins, the stuff he talks about and some of the stuff he says just sticks with you and resonates with you so much, and the impact he's had on other people. And a lot of people would know where, especially myself and stuff like that. I know there's people out there that wouldn't be where they are now if it wasn't for Smacks. Well, not only, yes, he did an amazing job as a manager, but he just did so much more than that. The relationship he had with all of us, and not just us, but our parents, our girlfriends, our brothers, our sisters, our stepbrothers, our cousins, anybody that came in and around you, he treated with the best respect and built such an amazing relationship with everybody whenever he meets them. And he still does it now. I still see him now, as clubhouse manager. He doesn't actually look after a team anymore, but when he comes in and he's doing this thing around the club with Anne-Marie and stuff like that, and there's somebody he doesn't know, he knows them by the time they've left the club. And I just think that's brilliant.
Big shout out to Anne-Marie as well, because
for putting up with him.
She's a rock in herself. That's Smacks' better half. When we started the podcast, Smacks was our first guest, and we were very naive, both of us. It was our first podcast that we'd ever done. No regrets, because it was brilliant to kick off with Smacks. Couldn't have imagined kicking off with anybody else. No. But now we've got slightly better camera, we've got better equipment, the recording's a little bit clearer, better, all the rest of it. I just wish we'd have had that then.
At the start, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But
we didn't know how popular it was going to be there, and it was, before we invested too much into it, we didn't really 100%. Know. And because it has been so well received, and everybody's enjoyed it, and not just locally, but also in the, in the country. But then, you get stuff come through that people are listening in Canada and Spain and all over the places and stuff like that. So
Argentina, India, Germany, Australia, Canada, Chile, France, all over the place, all over the place.
So we're international superstars, basically.
100%.
Get on.
But the biggest thing that struck me with Smacks, and funnily enough, because he was our first guest, the second half, as people that listen will know, bearing in mind Smacks isn't here in the room with us at the moment. He usually listens in, but he's downstairs messing about in his shop trying to sort everything out, which is why we can talk a bit more freely. But we asked the question in the second half, we talk about the values of rugby and how it's helped people, and ask what rugby means to them. And Smacks, the biggest thing that he felt and reiterated was the friendships that you get when you're part of a team. A team, not just rugby, but rugby here at the club, friendship, camaraderie. They stick together and stay together forever. And that's been the main theme through, I think, all of our podcasts. Whenever we ask, what does rugby mean to you? That's the one thing that comes up
It's the
without
friendships, yeah.
fail. But no, fantastic first guest there.
And then our second guest was none other than Snoz, Harry Bazalgette. And it was great for me because, he's been one of my best friends for a long time, and spoke to him about coming on, and he was more than excited. And it was an amazing time to have him on, because obviously he just signed his first professional contract with Cornish Pirates, and he was awesome. He was so funny to have on. And do you remember when it went down halfway through?
Heartbroken.
It was just such a stressful time, and literally, I didn't think it was over halfway.
Yeah,
definitely over halfway, and we were chatting away to Baz, and it was awesome. And sort of forget you're recording a podcast, really. And that was only the second one we'd done.
My first time on Zoom as well, recording anything
That's right.
on Zoom.
Yeah, that's right. It was the first time on Zoom, because Smacks we'd had in person, hadn't we? That's right. And Harry couldn't make it down, so it was online. And then when it crashed, just that sheer panic of, oh my God, we've lost everything. And then when it suddenly just like that little bar came up on the screen, and it was just like, saving recording in progress, and we were like, oh, thank God, because we were just so stressing about it, so hard. But what an amazing guest he was, and just listening to the way he spoke about traveling around with a dad in the military, the different sports he played. And you know what really, I mean, it's not the same for me, but really stuck with me. And actually, it's great and says a lot about him. When we asked him that question of what does rugby, where would you be without rugby, or who would you be without rugby? And he said, well, I'd be Harry Bazalgette. And it was very much like, yes, obviously rugby means so much to him, but it's not everything. But the stuff that does mean everything to him is the relationships, the friendships, the stuff that he's got going on with other people, his new dog. And like, did you know what I mean? Just stuff like that. He was very much, he didn't need rugby as much as rugby needed him. And I think that was a really nice thing for him to go, I'd just be the same person if it wasn't for rugby. I'd probably be doing what I'm doing now, but in football. And that's great. I think that's a great mindset to have. But talking about his physical dominance around other people, because he was more developed than other people, which meant he could kick further and stuff like that. When he nosed us about kicking and stuff like that, which was great for someone, not for me, but great for someone. And he was an awesome crack to have on the podcast.
I agree with exactly what you've just said. His mindset to continue to improve. We asked him the question. He said he'd never missed a training session. Was always at the gym trying to better himself, was constantly kicking. He had the mindset that fitted perfectly with the sport. But like you say, he'd have been dominant in any sport with that mindset, that whole keep going, never give up. What were his words? Back yourself. Be your biggest fan. Never say die, which is what he did, because he didn't go through the academy, the big club academy setups.
No, he didn't do any of that.
He played rugby to the highest ability he could, and by default got picked up, noticed, and put forward, and now is a professional rugby player. And, fair play to him. But like you say, it's that mindset, that mentality, which would have made him successful in any sport and in any walk of life. But yeah, great guy, great to listen to.
It was really, it was a nice positive spin, but he wouldn't be where he is now if it wasn't for the pandemic. So it's actually quite nice to hear some positive out of that awfulness. But he wouldn't be in that situation if it wasn't that. I'm not a big believer in everything happens for a reason and stuff like that, but he is, and you can sort of see why. He thinks everything that's happened has led him to where he is now, and that was all for like a sort of reason. I really respect that.
Well, to me, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, And yeah, there's a degree where some people look at it and go, it was just meant to be, because it just seemed like it happened. But he wouldn't have got those opportunities would have come and gone if he wasn't prepared for them.
Yeah, exactly.
So it seems like fate. It seems like luck. It just does. But that mindset made it happen. He made his own luck, if you like. That's how I like to see it. But yeah, really good guy. Love talking to him. Of course, his younger brother's here at the academy, now in the senior academy this season. They had a great season last year in the junior academy. His dad's part of the academy and the club as well. I never know which one's Big Baz, Little Baz, Mini Baz.
So the way it works is
all the Bazes.
Big Baz is Daddy Baz. Some people call him Daddy Baz, some people call him Big Baz. I sort of like have a bit more of a professional relationship with him, so I call him Baz. And then middle Baz or medium Baz is obviously Harry, and then you've got little / small Baz,
which you won't appreciate, I'm sure,
which is Robbie. But then you've also got Mama Baz as well.
Yeah, and who's made some amazing macrame, which hangs on the wall.
On the carpet,
macrame artwork.
Oh, yeah. not intelligent enough for that. Not intelligent enough to appreciate something like that. Jane does all like used to do all the fixtures for Caulfield's rugby and stuff like that, and she does stuff around the club as well. And that whole family just lives and breathes Wimborne, but also lives and breathes rugby. And I think they're an awesome family. All of them are brilliant.
Absolutely. No, great second game. That was really enjoyed that one. Third game you weren't available for.
COVID.
Nasty coughs.
Yeah, COVID took me out.
So we had Shelley Hamblin on, and please, everybody, go and listen to it. Shelley she turned up, and I think her first words were, I don't know what I'm going to say, because she was so modest and humble about her achievements. She played a final at Twickenham and won as a rugby player. I mean, that's massive, really is massive.
It's certainly on my bucket list.
Yeah. So to have her on was great. And even though she didn't know what she was going to say, as soon as you start talking rugby, it just flows. But as a coach here at Wimborne, the first and only female lead coach that Wimborne's had. So trailblazing, really. But her dedication to her coaching here is just fantastic, and you can see how much it means to her when you talk to her about about her, the way she wants to develop her squad. And yeah, she talked, which struck me most of all. She talked about defeat, how you deal with the defeat, and how it makes you stronger, how you learn from it. But like she said, not just the players, but the coaches, parents on the side, anybody that's part of it. You watch it, there's a defeat, you learn from it, it makes you stronger, you go again, and it's just going to develop you more so than an easy win. We talked about that with Smacks in the first game as well, about the easy wins and the respect that you're running over another opposition. But yeah, she was a real delight to talk to, especially around that sort of stuff, the development, individual development, personal development. But I know you listened to the podcast that you weren't here, but and we had Smacks here as a stand-in for you, which
best stand-in we've ever had.
Best stand-in we've ever had. Best first guest. He's all-round amazing guy.
What I liked about Shelley's, she spoke about her time at Swans, which is literally just up the road from us, Swanage and Wareham Rugby Club, and she spoke about there being her and 3 other girls running around in the pissing cold, wet, and I've been in those situations, not at this club, but at other places I've been involved in at rugby and stuff like that. And it is lashing it down. And there's you and 4 other people here, and you are thinking, what the hell am I doing here? And then you come out and then you start messing around. And it was so nice to hear her talk about, I didn't care how many people there were. I speak to a lot of people and they go, oh, so for example, when I've been at the college before and stuff like that, and we had a bit of a difficult year this year, and I'd see one of the players and I'd say, oh, missed you at training yesterday, where were you? And he was like, oh, there's only 11 people that go, and none of them are front row, so there's no point in me going down. And I remember having that conversation with him and going, it's everybody else has that attitude as well. If you all change your attitude to let's go down to training, you'd have all your front row buddies there, and you wouldn't just be, because we were very much a backs orientated team. We had an electric set of backs, but good back row as well, but struggled in the front five, as a lot of clubs do. And then after Christmas, all of a sudden we've got 32 at training, and he walks past the field and came over to me, and he's in his college get up, like, you got your kit today, mate? You ready to go? And he was like, no, I haven't. I haven't brought it in. I didn't know so many people came to training. I was like, that's because I've had that conversation with them that I had with you, and they've changed their mindset. And those 4 people that were out there with Shelley, they didn't give up, that they kept going. And look what Shelley does now. Look where Shelley had done stuff at uni and stuff like that. She did it for
achieve what she's achieved as well.
For the love of the game. And when I do stuff with the DPP, and we're on, if you've been to Swans, over the hedge, they have like they're very lucky, they've got lots of pitches. They've got 4 pitches, and we're on pitch 3. And halfway through our training session, about, I'd say 30 to 35 ladies come out and start training. And ever since I listened to that podcast, I think, wow, Shelley would be so pleased to see at that exact club where there were 4 people running around, there's now 30 plus every week. They've got music blaring, they're having a whale of a time, and they're loving it. Like, how amazing is that? I just think that's great. But that, if somebody had taken the decision to shut that down when there's been 3 to 4 ladies, they wouldn't be where they are now.
100%.
I just think that's great.
Trailblazer, Shelley Hamblin. You've achieved more than you'll ever know, I think.
Swans want you back as well. They want you to go and play for them. Not coach. Not coach. You can stay here and coach, but you can go back there and play, Shelley.
You'll allow that, yeah?
Yeah, that's fine. Only until we got a ladies team here.
Which we're working on. Would be fantastic to see guys, girls. It's coming up to pre-season for all clubs, all local clubs. Find a local club, get down there. There'll be an ability to play. Even, like you say, even if there's 3 or 4 guys or 3 or 4 girls down there playing, just get down there and chuck a rugby ball around. It's gonna get better. What's it I heard the other day, that rugby is the fastest growing team sport on the planet at the moment.
Women's rugby has been the fastest growing sport for the past 4 years.
Yeah. Get involved. There's nothing better. Honestly, get down the rugby club, no matter what age, ability, skill set, whether you've never played it, whether you've played it for years, get down and enjoy yourself. It's just the best. And thanks Shelley Hamblin for leading the way to creating what is today the women's game, I think. There you go.
Definitely.
No, loved that. Really loved that.
Yeah, I was gutted to not be a part of that one, to be honest with you. It was a good one.
So game 4, James Williams. What a guy. Really, what a guy.
Yeah, top bloke.
I mean, to listen to him, and he nearly lost it all during COVID. Sale Sharks, and all of a sudden they're not playing rugby. They're not renewing his contract. He can't get to talk to anybody. He seems like he's lost his opportunity. But the biggest thing for me was when he talked about the hate that he got on social media.
Yeah.
About him not achieving, not doing anything for sale, they didn't care. It was like, yeah, stuff you, get lost. We don't need you. You were nothing. You were rubbish. And he used that as a positive. And the next season, he's top point scorer. But in the championship for Hartbury, and then signs a contract with
Mm.
Bristol Bears for 2 years.
There you go.
Which I was gutted we couldn't mention on the podcast.
No, I know that was so difficult because you keep, and I nearly said something about it, or nearly said something about like I think it was literally right at the end. I was like, mate, best of luck at Bristol. Hope everything goes well. And I was like, best of luck in your bright future. I wish you all the best of luck in that, because it was just literally at that time we couldn't talk about it. And then the very next day the podcast came out. It was all over social media. James Williams signs for Bristol, but it's just the way it goes, isn't it? Just one of them. And after he's top point scorer in the Premiership at Bristol, we'll have him back on and we'll have a chat about that.
That'd be brilliant. Yeah, and he's promised to come back on. I think we can say friend of the show.
Oh yeah,
he's liked all of the stuff on Instagram and all the rest of it, and I know being More Rugby Instagram's following him and wish him all of the best for this coming season. We should go back and wish Harry Bazalgette all the best as well, because he's re-signed his contract with Cornish Pirates, hasn't he? So yeah, best of luck to both them.
Yeah.
Two homegrown talents from Wimborne Rugby Club that have gone on to become professional rugby players, and I know there'll be many more to come. Many more. And for all the girls and boys at Wimborne that see players like Harry, players like James going on to something that to be paid to play your sport is an achievement, no matter what the level. Absolutely, no matter what the level. If you're paid for doing something, then that's an achievement. And in all walks of life, we all go and get a job, and some of us just sell our time and our labor and whatnot. But if you've got a passion for something and you enjoy it and you want to be the best or be your best at it, and you can do that to the point where someone pays you, then that's success as far as I'm concerned. Oh, no. If you're doing it and you enjoy it, that's success. If someone pays you, that's just a cherry on the cake.
100%.
But that's massive. Yeah.
I was talking to some of the guys I work with at the moment, and we've got a bit of a competition at the moment with table tennis. And when the kids aren't in, we have this discussion that we are professional table tennis players, because right now we are being paid to play table tennis.
Yeah, okay.
And that's an achievement for me, and that is success for me, that I am technically a professional table tennis player.
So I can't top that. I'm not a professional sportsman, Jay. Professional table tennis is pretty impressive, but I do consider myself very lucky, because we've had me and my other half run our own business, and to have the ability to get to a beach in the morning and go for an early morning swim, and when the sun's been shining, sitting there, the beauty of mobile phones, sitting there sending emails, texts, organizing, researching whilst you're on the beach. We were chatting, me and my other half. People go to the city and hope they can get a corner office where they've got a window and have a bit of a view. Stuff all that when you can sit on the beach in the sunshine and do all of your emails and your admin and your pricing and whatever you want to on the beach in a pair of board shorts.
Budgie smugglers.
Board shorts.
So you're actually a professional sandcastle builder?
Pretty much, yeah. You could call that, yeah.
Get on.
Yeah.
On. There you go.
Stroke nearly a bum. That's about it.
Follow your dreams, kids. Follow your dreams.
But yeah, James Williams, what an inspiration to anybody that wants to achieve something, puts their mind to it. He said he had aspirations to play in the Premier League, even though he was losing his contract with a big club. He was getting hate mail. Hate mail's a thing of the 90s, but yeah.
What's mail?
Mail, exactly. Yeah. Enough of my oldness now. Getting rubbish chucked at him, to use that and say, you know what, I'm going to do this. It's going to fire me up. And to look at those at the beginning of the season and say, I'm going to do this to prove everybody wrong. And now he's playing next season, this coming season, playing for Bristol Bears, Premier League club, he's gonna fly. Everybody, keep an eye out for him. James Williams, he'll be back on the podcast.
Yeah,
I know. Follow his journey, because he's a proper inspiration.
Oh, 100%. Just a great bloke. I bumped into him at Bournemouth Sevens a couple of weeks ago, and we were just having a chat over a pint there and watching some rugby and that, and we were just having a good chat. And he's such a nice bloke, and I think that is obviously it's amazing what he's achieved in rugby and everything like that, but to be like where he is now, and then he was out like with the people I play with down at the club that were in his age group. He hasn't forgotten where he's come from, and to be that grounded, to have achieved that much and be that much of a top bloke, he is a one hell of a guy.
Absolutely. So we went on from James Williams. Our fifth guest was superstar as far as rugby's concerned, maybe a bit controversial. People seem to love him and hate him.
Is that my mate?
Yeah. But it was Mike Ford, ex-rugby league international. He won most everything you could in rugby league. Went on to management and coaching in Union. Coached Ireland. Coached in America, Germany. Coached England, Bath,
Ireland. He's done it all.
He's just done it all. Achieved loads with Bath. And of course, his sons have all gone on to play rugby and gone on to coach in rugby. Most notable was George Ford. Great to have him on the podcast.
100%. For me, I am a bit of a coaching nose. I do love coaching rugby, and I do spend a bit of time into different practices and different ways to coach, different coaching styles and things like that. And to have him on, a real rugby coaching great, was just awesome to listen to his particular stuff about building leaders and his way of talking about how he does his stuff and what he does with the people, what he does with the relationships, how he builds leaders. And I like that some of the stuff that he was coming out with, I just thought was brilliant. And I took a lot away from it. And he's been very kind and said, feel free to email me about anything like that. And once I get going again, because I'm going to be doing my advanced coaching award next year, he's certainly somebody who I'm going to be emailing saying, but before I submit this piece of work, Mike, what do you think? Because I really don't know. But he was a awesome guest to have on for me personally. But actually, the people that listened to him were like, wow, I didn't know he actually coached that much rugby. I thought he was just like a manager, like sort of like a football manager style. And that guy, as a head coach or DOI, director of rugby, would have just been such a hands-on coach. And what a great coach he is.
And his mindset when he was younger as well, going into league, that idea that he wanted to be the best when he got there. So he'd go out and he'd put the time and the effort in himself personally to develop. So when he got to positions he wanted to be in, he was already ahead of the game because he'd taken it upon himself to prepare himself so that when he got there, he was ready for it, hit the ground running, if you like. And although he said he was finding his feet for a while in when he started coaching, he did actually learn on the job. But for somebody to put you forward, and this is how this is how we run our company, to be honest with you, because we don't really advertise too much. We're not particularly good at advertising. So, but to have somebody put you forward as a recommendation is probably the biggest accolade you can have. For somebody else to say, this company or this guy or this, speak to this lady or get these girls in or speak to those lads or whatever. That's better than trying to shout yourself. To have somebody else recognize your talents. And of course, for him to get put straight into an Ireland job.
Mm.
And I was really surprised because he said he was the first Ireland defence coach
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
that Ireland had ever had.
Yeah. Nobody to compare it to.
Exactly. So yeah, he was great to have on. But yeah, like you say, talking about leaders, he was talking about the fact that when you're trying to develop a team, you try to develop them to the point where they don't need you anymore. And I've heard lots of that talk from big businessmen. I'm talking, the biggest businessmen in the world. Give them everything they can be so they can go and do it for themselves and don't need you anymore. But treat them so well that they don't want to leave you.
100%.
And I think that kind of was where he was coming from.
100%. I've become a bit distracted, actually, James, because if you look out the window, one of my two of my really good mates, actually, Luca and James Waterworth, are clearly getting in some hidden fitness because I keep seeing them sprinting past the window at the club. So massive shout out to James Waterworth and Luca for going out there and smashing the fizz. James, you look like you're about to have a heart attack. I hope you're all right. Luca, breezing it as always. Shame about the chocolate shoulders. Look at him go. Go on, James. Catch him, James.
Oh, he's never going to catch him.
No, he's never going to catch him. Fair play to you two. I could not think of anything worse. However, after this, I actually am going to go for a run and then go in the sea, which
Cool.
I've just decided since hearing you talk about the sea that I'm gonna do that. But yeah, Mike Ford, what one awesome guest he was, and it was great to listen to his coaching philosophies, his stuff, and actually it was actually really great to hear about his lads as well and the sort of stuff they do, and the time and effort and energy and resources he put into all of them has been, it was a shame to see George Ford get injured in the Premiership final, but how amazing has he been for Leicester all season? That's got to come from somewhere.
Top of the game. He's been on top of the game for a long time. A real testament to him. And like Mike said, he's the one that's doing it. He's the one that's playing it. He's the one that's developing. He just chats with his dad now, regularly, and he's quite clearly done what he said he tries to do with his teams. He's tried to get his lads to a point where they don't need him anymore, but they're still there to want to come and have a chat.
100%.
Interesting, because there has been a lot of controversy around Mike Ford, Sam Burgess, so on and so forth, and we're respectful enough on the pod that we wouldn't try and stir any shit or anything like that, because what's the point? Life's too short. But it was interesting the way you touched on the subject was, I think, quite respectful. But it was interesting to hear his slightly vulnerable and slightly hurt side to him, which perhaps you don't really see very often. Certainly from rugby coaches.
No, you don't see that sort of side of it. I actually really felt for him and his family when they were speaking about it, when it was a really difficult time for him when the story first broke, and then it died down, but then for it to explode the way it did after Sam went. And was it on a podcast he chatted about? Or was it on a book?
It was with Goody. But he'd written it in his book. He said he wouldn't mention it because he'd written it in his book and wanted his book to come out.
Yeah,
I'm not really 100% because I'm not really interested in it.
I don't care. Yeah. I just and it must have been really difficult for him. You look at that side of something like that. You really, you see the headline, but you don't really see the stuff behind it. And it was actually really nice to hear his sort of take on it. But yeah, good bloke, and really enjoyed that podcast with him. Thought that's one have definitely been a highlight for me.
I did notice you had notes as long as your arm on what to take to the academy the next day. Our last guest that we've had so far, I was really looking forward to this. My era, I don't know, I'm old, Jay. Victor Abogu, massive guy, massive character, played in the days when rucking was rucking, and life was tough back then. And it was interesting to get different perspective on life from today, because we are quite protected and we are quite mollycoddled today. everybody's concerned about everybody, quite rightly. But to listen to somebody that grew up and cut their teeth in a time where you just have to suck it up and be tough. The mentality that creates in you is one of a mental toughness that's well needed today. And although I don't think, and I don't want anybody to think I'm saying, oh, it was better back then, and don't worry about people's mental health and all the rest of it. It's very, very important, and I'm all behind everybody getting the support they need in every single way. We've all suffered with mental health throughout the years. But I think sometimes there's a degree of toughness that we've lost, in that you can be in a situation that makes you something greater. And those situations are almost always tough times. If everything's too easy, then we're not quite as tough as we should be.
Resilience, that sort of builds that sort of resilience, doesn't it?
That's it. But actually, to listen to him talk about the fact that everybody in the squad that he was in, when he first got into Bath, everyone was allowed to stick their head up and speak, or everybody was allowed to put their neck out and try and get the game over the line. But if you weren't good enough, then you'd get knocked back down. And life's tough. Life is a tough gig. And sometimes we do stick our head up and get knocked back down again. But when you've tried, everybody will rally around. And he was saying, you say something, it might not be the right thing to say. You get knocked back down, but everybody's there with you to try and build you back up again, because they need to know that you're capable of having their back, and they're there to have your back. And that's what I love about rugby. No matter what the era you played in, whether it was when, you got rucked out of the way by an 18-stone pair of studs, or today you get, the mental game, the skills game is different today. But yeah, rugby just teaches you that life's tough. I was on a podcast a couple of months ago. Nathan Alexander asked me to talk about the sort of thing that we're doing at Be More Rugby. And he asked about rugby. Is it getting softer? Is it getting, with all the laws trying to make it a bit safer and all the rest of it? And yes, I agree, it's getting safer.
That's a good thing, though.
But yeah, exactly, 100%. But you can't say it's not as tough as it was, because the guys are bigger, they hit harder, they're athletes now. Whereas back in the day, there wasn't the safety, but they weren't the athletes they are today.
They didn't have that nutrition, that sort of side of it. I listen to so many people that are used to play, and they go, "Thank God I'm not playing now, because I couldn't be hit like that. I couldn't take those sort of hits." And it has properly become a beast game. And I think the reason why they've had to, I'm not saying it wasn't hard back then, but maybe it didn't do as much damage if you got smashed in the head a few years ago, because you were up against, a part-time decorator. But now if you get hit in the head by somebody who's in the gym 4 times a week, nutrition coming out of their ears, is a real specimen, has come through that player development, has been a unit for a while, and knows how to chuck his weight around, take a shoulder to the head like that, that's going to do some damage. And it does do damage. Even now, you look at the stuff that's been going. I mean, I personally think, after watching that Premiership final, I actually generally don't know what a high tackle is now. I thought I had a real clear cut of, that's a red, that's a yellow. I don't have that now. And I think that's the law. It's not the laws, it's the way they're enforced that needs to be looked at. And when, we're going to get an awesome lad called Ben Simpson to come on, who's a really great up-and-coming ref. And I think it's just going to be a bit of a quiz for him, asking him about stuff, because, he lives and breathes that stuff. But I think there should have been 2 red cards in that Premiership final. You watch the next day, Will Skelton, that's a red card. So why weren't the 2 the day before a red card? Do you know what I mean? It's stuff like that I think needs looking at. Not the laws itself, but the way they're enforced needs to be looked at.
So I look at this whole idea because so many of the big superstars of rugby have come out and saying it's starting to get a soft game, and they're glad they're retiring from it and not coming into it because you can't tackle and you can't do this and you can't do that. But talking through life, life is a tough sport. But like rugby, back in the day, it was really hard. There was no real protection. People got hurt. But today, it's no easier. In fact, it's probably harder. But everyone's better at it because they've developed and learned. And you've got laws in rugby which protect you. And they're like everyone's rights. And everybody talks about their rights, and rights do protect you. I'm probably bang on to people I know about this quite a bit. Everyone's got rights, but they forget their responsibilities. In rugby, you've got laws. They're there to protect you. But if you go out and you haven't trained and you haven't prepared, those laws aren't going to stop you getting smashed by somebody and break ribs or do damage or whatever. You've got a responsibility to yourself to make yourself strong, prepare yourself, get yourself ready. And the game today, I think, is probably tougher than it used to be. There's more laws to protect people than there used to be, which is a good thing. But you've got a responsibility to prepare yourself. And if you do that, no matter how tough life gets, you'll get better than it and you'll survive it. And to me, rugby just maps that completely. But yeah, I think today, it's such a fantastic game. And I can't see that changing.
No, definitely not.
So that was our 6 games. Victor was great. Really looking forward to having some more guests on. We've got a few that we're trying to line up at the moment. A bit difficult with the end of the season.
Yeah.
People have commitments and bits and pieces. But I think that for our podcast first half, like a rundown of what we've done is really, really cool. No real announcements at half time, I would say, apart from the fact that pre-season's coming up. It doesn't actually take long before a season to end and a pre-season to start.
Jesus.
So get out there and play. Find your local club. No matter where you are, there'll be a local club to you.
And if there isn't one, if you're in the back end of Canada or somewhere like that, start one.
Start one, yeah, absolutely. Get a few guys together, like Shelley Hamlin. If there's 3 of you and a rugby ball, you're got laughing. A team. Yeah.
You're laughing.
Absolutely. And of course, as far as we're concerned, as a podcast, we've got the social media sites. Get on there and have a look and see what we're doing. Watch our podcasts. If you like them, let us know. Follow us so that you get notifications of the next podcasts that come out. We're doing this just because the love of the game, the love of the philosophy around rugby, trying to shed that with everybody. So if you enjoy it, share it with somebody that you think might want to hear it or that it might help. Yeah, this is what we're here for.
100%.
So the second half, Jay, you and I have never asked each other these questions.
No.
We speak to everybody that comes on our podcast to find out about them. And then we talk about the philosophy and how rugby's helped them. But you and I haven't on the podcast talked to each other about. And I know we've got the same values on this one. So
go on then, James. What does rugby mean to you?
So rugby to me, I was going to ask you that one. You jumped in there. Rugby to me.
Why don't we ask each other all of the questions?
Why not? So to me, rugby, I've had a love and a passion for rugby for forever. I didn't play much, not particularly at school. I wasn't particularly confident. So school rugby to me was, I was in the squad, played games, but as a youngster, I wasn't confident. So I didn't really get too stuck in.
No.
And school rugby is a bit different to club rugby. I didn't really get to club rugby until after school. Played a little local club, trained mainly, didn't play too much. And where I grew up, there were lots of little villages. So there was a number of village teams that were just crying out for somebody to go and play with them. And so played for a few different village teams as and when I could. But I think as most people do, you get a few responsibilities come on, like, like marriage, a house, kids, all the rest of it, and you start worrying about that and trying to work. Especially for me, I was in the construction industry since I left school, so to run the risk of getting injured and not be able to work, pay the bills, raise kids, all the rest of it was one of those. But it's always been in my life and it's always been my passion. So when my youngest got into rugby, you know him, he's such an amazing guy, and I speak as a dad, so of course I'm biased. But fitting in society's not been his strongest point, although he's very, very intelligent. He just understood rugby. It clicked. So we talked like everything was a game of rugby. That led on to writing a book, Rugby Be the Best You Can Be, which is on Amazon, by the way, if you want to. Anybody that buys it, all of the profits from it go to Wimborne Rugby Club Academy. So get on Amazon and buy it, please. In ebook or paperback, or ebook,
or hardback, paperback, bookback.
One of those. Buy it anyway. You'll be helping out Wimborne Rugby Club Academy. But yeah, it just really made me passionate to try and spread the whole philosophy of rugby with as many people as I could speak to. Our company is we do project management. So we bring together teams to create and achieve a goal. That's what we do. That's all that happens in rugby. People come together, they work together, they create teams. It's rugby's life as far as I'm concerned. And I live it like it's life. Our company runs on the ethos, the treads that I know the Rugby Football Union obviously have championed, and we at Wimborne Rugby do. But yeah, to me, rugby's life. You live your life like it's a game of rugby, and you're not going to go far wrong.
100%.
What about you, Jay? What's rugby to you?
Rugby to me is, I can't really remember a time that I wasn't doing rugby, which is pretty crazy because I found rugby really late. It's weird. I think back to when I was at first school, and we used to like mess around on the field and stuff like that, and I was always much bigger than people my own age, and a couple of the guys, people like Ollie Weekly, Josh Williams, that I went to school with and I was really good mates with. They're like, "Oh, you should come down to Wimborne Rugby Club." And I went back and said to my mum, "My friends think I should go down to Wimborne Rugby Club." No, you're too busy. No, you got your karate on. And I was actually part of a drama academy, but that is I was actually surprised to some, but not to others. I was actually part of Pauline Quirk's drama academy. I did that for quite a while, so that took up a lot of my time. And then I was told I only had the face for a podcast, which is why I was so upset when you got a better camera. But there you go. And so didn't do that. And then I went to Broadstone Middle, my first school, Longfleet, which is a bit of a weird one because I did reception to year 7, and never did rugby, not touch rugby, nothing. Never even watched it, couldn't even spell it, still can't. And then went to Broadstone Middle and walked down. I'd moved school, so all my friends that I'd gone to first school with had gone to Paul High, and we'd moved house. So I'd gone to Broadstone Middle, and I knew nobody, and I was very much like, I'm a bit nervous, a bit scared. And then went down to a PE lesson with a guy called Mr. Simpson. I got my gum shield in and my rugby shirt, and he was like, on you go then. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, we're just doing a bit of a warm up. And I cannot genuinely remember the way he set up this thing, but it was like a King of the Court thing, but was the most messed up King of the Court thing ever, because it was you versus 4 people and you had the ball. And he was like, "Oh, just go in like the little one," and they did it on things. And right at the end was all the people that played club rugby, and then there was people at the bottom who didn't. I went in there, given the ball. It was like, all you got to do is just run through and put the ball down. I was like, oh, okay. Did it. And he was like, oh, on to the next one then, and did that. And he was like, oh, on to the next one then, and I did that. And then I was up against Jake Stevens, who was an awesome guy, and he genuinely, if he'd hit me, would have killed me. But somehow my skinny body managed to get out of the way, and I scored on the top thing. And then that was it, really. I was not allowed to not play rugby for the school. We had our first game against, I don't know what school it was, but for Broadstone Middle, we lost something like 67-0 or something like that. I think I missed all of my tackles. Not much has changed. I didn't touch the ball once. But I loved it. And then I can remember being in the coach on the way back. Everyone was quite upset, and I was like, "Really, first game of rugby? That was awesome." And a member of staff that worked there at the time, I can't remember his name because he meant so little to me because he was such a negative person. You know, just sort of those people that you block out in life. Turned around and went, "Well done, lads. We are now at the bottom of the school rankings in Dorset. We are the worst. You are the worst rugby players in the county. How does that make you feel? Do you care? Do you care?" And I thought in my head, no, genuinely, I don't care because I really enjoyed it. And I think that moment in that bus on that way back really shaped my mindset. Because that guy was such a knob, and I'd love to remember his name, but I generally can't. And what an awful bloke he was to turn around and say that to a bunch of year eights that had just had that turn around and nothing positive, just told them they were the worst rugby players in the county. Believe it or not, I'm the only person out of that group that plays club rugby now, which is
Wow, that's shocking.
Which says a lot. But anyway, then I left Broadstone Middle, went to Corfe Hills, played for the school there a bit, and I met this amazing guy called Simon Keane. He coaches down at Litchfield Rugby Club. He does the men's team down there, and he does the backs and attack down there. And he is an awesome bloke, a really good friend now, but was just such an awesome inspiration to me and got me into club rugby, which was here. I ended up down here, and I had my awesome coach that was Giles Hewson. That's it, really. I never really looked back. Been playing ever since. I'd done a little bit of coaching on the side with my brother's age group because I'd been asked to help out. I then fractured my ACJ. Down here, I got lifted and then dropped, and I had a great big pop, which is my shoulder coming out and then going back in, but damaged the shoulder. I actually thought I'd landed on the ball and popped the ball. And then when I realized the ball was in my left hand and I couldn't feel my fingers and that something had gone wrong, and that was sort of the start of the shoulder problem. And then ended up coaching it. And there's no way, I'm pretty shocking as it is now, but I reckon I'd be even more shocking if I hadn't started coaching. Because I started so late with rugby, coaching allowed me to go back to basics because I wasn't able to go back to basics here because they were so far along and so far progressed that I didn't have time. I had to very quickly learn how to get up to their level quickly, but being allowed to coach really allowed me to slow it down and understand it. And that's how I sort of got into it. And then I'd sort of done it a bit half-heartedly, nothing really thought about it, and then carried on playing. And then when I was 18, 17, can't remember exactly, I broke my eye socket, which was pretty tough. Mentally was really rough. I missed out on an important final with my age group, and that really hurt because I'd played in all the games up to it, and to miss that, but to be there watching it was quite tough. I had 2 operations on it to put it back together with some metal work and stuff like that. That's really when I started getting very heavily into coaching and enjoying it. I set up a team at college, did my coaching badges through my level, which was the old level 2, got into it that way, and then just out of nowhere met an awesome guy called Sam Cloud, who pushed me on, put me in touch with the right people. He was very kind and thought he saw something in me coaching wise. Definitely didn't see anything in me playing wise because I was back playing by then. And then ended up with the DPP, which is amazing. I love it. I'd carried on coaching.
That's Bath for everybody that's listening. The Bath DPP.
I'd carried on with that. Carried on with stuff here at the club, and then sort of dreams came true really in that as I was about to leave college, they pulled me aside and said, well done setting up the rugby team. I'd got a bit of like attention around it as like young volunteer of the year for the county, which was amazing to receive and was a great recollection and stuff like that. The stuff I'd done, got some good stuff out of that. Met some amazing people through that. And then it was very much people were helping me, and which was great because they were like, oh, you've set up this, you've done that, you're doing this, you're young and quite doing it. And actually, the reason, yes, I wasn't the best technical coach, but I was able to have such an impact on the lads because I was so close to their age. And I was coaching, when I was 17, I was coaching 15-year-olds. So that's not a million miles away. And because I had that better relationship with them than the, fully adult coaches, I had that better relationship with them, and it sort of just worked like that really. And it kept working for a while. And then KMC said, thank you very much for setting up rugby here. It got some attention from the RFU. They got a bit of funding through it. We'd like to offer you a full-time job. And I did. And that's what I did. And carried on doing my stuff of keep pushing forward. Very lucky enough to receive the title as Leeds forwards coach for the academy, and then also game day lead for the senior academy, which has been brilliant. Still carrying on playing. Done some stuff with DPP, with the county and stuff like that, and that was really where all my coaching sort of came from. Really, is an injury, which is quite interesting.
But can I say, and just interrupt you on that one? We talked about players achieving a level where they can afford to play what they deem as their sport. They love it and they get paid to do it. So for a start, every day they're doing what they love, which is success. Secondly, there's a cherry on the cake where they get paid. But you've just talked through exactly the same process in the fact that, like you said, dreams come true. The thing that you love doing and being part of, you got an opportunity to do every day, and on top of that, be paid for it. There's 99.99% of the world that end up going and doing a job that they've trained for, not really passionate about, don't really want to do, and they go and do it day in and day out. And I've been there with careers, because when I left school, it was get in the construction industry. There was no other option. When I say there was no other option, very, very limited option for somebody that didn't do particularly well academically at school. Go out and you work with your hands, get a trade or whatever. And I don't regret it. It's served me well, but that wasn't my passion. I did my best at it, same as I do everything. But you've had an opportunity to take your passion and do something, and that's massive. Listening to your story, then
it is, and I do. It for me it is awesome, and I've been told you're not going to be a coach because you haven't played professional rugby. You don't even play a decent standard of local rugby. You're too young. I've had all that sort of stuff, and I look back to the stuff that James Williams says. I I can't talk about it too much yet, but I have just got a new coaching gig that I start very soon. So I actually am moving away from the college, and I'm going to be definitely be talking about that on the podcast soon, which will be I really genuinely can't wait to talk about. But I really do feel that a lot of those people that said it was never going to sort of happen, I feel like it is happening, and it has been happening as well. You know, I love coaching at the club. I love doing stuff with the DPP. I love doing stuff with the college, and I have really enjoyed that sort of time. But it's nice to get that next step on, but not because I could coach the best line out or I could coach the best tactics or anything like that. My super strength that I know is the relationships I build with athletes that want to play games, and my passion for the sport that I feel. Because when you see somebody who's got a passion for anything, particularly sport, it is infectious. And the amount of people that are now playing rugby that weren't, particularly at the college, is amazing. And that is a win for me. Even if throughout all of it, I was just one person had started playing rugby, that would be a win. And what's great is I see on these like team social medias, and it's so nice that I can go, he wasn't playing rugby until I met him, or anything like that. And that is brilliant. You know, I work with this awesome girl who just basically when I first met her, played club rugby, but really wanted to push it and take it to a further level. She's now one of the youngest ever people to represent the women's county. And for me, that is great because she's gone out and done that on her own. That's not my coaching. That's just trying to put a different mindset in her. And that is it is that be more rugby sort of philosophy and that mindset that is infectious, because I genuinely don't know what I would do. And I know this comes on to the next thing, you know, who would you be if it wasn't for rugby? I genuinely don't know, because it is everything I do Monday to Sunday. That is what, you know, obviously I've had other jobs. I've worked for Co-op, I've worked in a post office, I've steamed dead people's shit off NHS equipment. I've done stuff like that, but coaching is what I enjoy, but not the cones, not the tactical side of it. It is the people, it's the relationships, it's the friendships that you build with co-coaches, and then actually being able to have that friendship with people. So, you know, I look at it like there's a guy called Will Proudley who coached when he was an under 18 here, and he now plays in the seniors with all of us, and he's a mate, which is great because he's made that progression on. And everybody talks about that drop off between Colts and seniors. If as a senior player you go out, and any senior players listen to this, if you go out and go and work with your Colts group, you will see them come up through into the seniors because they're not scared of you anymore. You've broken that down. You've built that relationship with them. And that's how you get the best out of people. That's, you know, when I do the other side of my job at the college, which is, you know, a bit of teaching here and now and doing some other stuff, that the best way you get out of them is by building a relationship with them. So they respect you. You're on that level. So when you have a difficult conversation with them, or you're trying to chase them for work or anything like that, you've built that relationship to allow you to do that. And that's exactly the same anywhere. You build a good relationship with somebody, and that's what you can get out of them. You get so much more out of people by building relationships with them.
But you also, by achieving yourself, and you touched on it then about you've been told actually, you know, you're not going to achieve this, you're not going to achieve that because you've not played high level rugby, blah blah blah. It's all bullshit, to be honest with you. Just tell them to off and go and do it, because and this is what I speak to Daniel, my lad, about. I was talking to them about this a couple of days ago, because I love the psychology of the game, love psychology full stop, and I love talking to both my boys because they've both done psychology. And we go to rugby games. And I was explaining this to him. There's the system that we have in us, the dopamine system, is a system that's affected by positive action towards something, and it makes you feel good. It's the thing that makes you go, oh yes, I get excited about something that you've just done. But achieving the thing doesn't give you the fulfillment of what you'd expect. A lot of people get a bit of an anticlimax when they've achieved something, but when they're actually taking positive steps towards something, they feel good about it. And I talk to him and I say it's exactly the same as the time when you're watching a game of rugby and the ball gets passed out, and say the outside centre breaks through the line and starts making some gains, and you can see the excitement on his face. Chris Ashton, when he ran down full length, you could see the excitement on his face. The dopamine system in him was firing completely. He scored, everything came down, it all calmed and went away. But during those positive steps, he was excited. And if you're making positive steps towards things, you get excited about it too. But not just you, the whole stadium erupts when somebody else does something positive towards a goal. And I say to my lad Daniel, when he does something positive towards something and achieves and is achieving something, I feel like that. When we've been to Twickenham, we went to the Clash to watch Bath, and during those plays when Bath are making some real meters, the whole stadium erupts. And that's how I feel when I see him do something positive. And that's how everybody that's a part of your friendship group, your fan base, your whoever they are, your family, when you do something positive, everybody. You look at how Wimborne Rugby Club reacts when James Williams came down here, when they hear about Harry Bazalgette getting a run out in the number 10 shirt. Everybody gets excited about it. Do something positive towards a goal, and it won't just make you feel good, it will make everybody around you feel good at the same time.
100%.
Yeah. And anybody that says you can't, tell them to right off.
Do one.
My eldest had some great news from him, and he won't mind me saying, I've mentioned it before, he plays football, so bear with me. But he's a goalkeeper, so it's not the end of the world. So
it comes quite close to a rugby player. So
however, he's not been through the big academy systems. He's not been picked up, blah, blah, blah. And he's had lots of trials, and he's had loads of shit chatted to him about, what you're doing here. So, you don't deserve to be here. You've not achieved anything. You've not done anything. He's just been asked to sign a contract whereby not a lot of money. He will get paid next season for standing in the goal on a football pitch.
Get on. Oh, well done.
Every Sunday.
That's
and
brilliant.
I couldn't be more proud for him.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And not a lot of money for him at the moment, but what an achievement. And I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, 100%.
Because he's got that never say die attitude that Harry Baz talked about. He's also used that same, they've, screenshotted, like James Williams screenshotted those negative comments and watched it. He's done that, and he's well on his way to becoming a fully fledged professional sportsman. And like we said before, anybody that's a professional sports person is achieving properly big levels. But yeah, don't let anybody tell you different. Don't let them get
100%.
right off and use it to your advantage.
100%.
Cool. Really cool. I think that probably covers what we'd be if it wasn't for rugby, because I don't think we'd be
100%.
I think that kind of goes through. But when it comes to, we're both part of the academy, volunteering, you're coaching, I'm helping out with the management, only helping out as a volunteer. But what do you hope the young players get from rugby?
I genuinely hope they get, number one, good relationships out of it with anybody. The second, though, is I hope they take the lessons from rugby into real life. So if you get knocked back, if you get knocked down, you have another go. If it doesn't come your way the first time, you keep trying. If you succeed and you do well, you do it respectfully and you respect everybody, no matter what color, race, religion, background, whatever it is. You respect everybody, no matter what. And that is what I really, really hope people take away from rugby, and not just young people, but I suppose particularly young people when they first start playing. I hope it teaches people discipline, enjoyment, and people get out of it what they should be, because I genuinely don't know anybody who's rocked up at a rugby club and gone, no, I'm not keen. And it genuinely, I know it was a sort of a snaggy little headline that they did their best to get a bit of clickbait out of Ugo Monya, but I couldn't agree any less that the culture needs to change, because without the social element that's in the adults, the game will die. Because what sets us apart, we are never going to compete with football because of a million different reasons. But what does set us apart and makes us attract these brilliant people into the game, these amazing people that are just attracted by rugby, is that social element. That doesn't always have to have a pint of Guinness in your hand. That is a great part of it, and that is so important, especially at the adult level. In fact, no, sorry, only at the adult level.
Yeah,
you can edit that bit out, James. Only at the adult level that drinking sort of side of it is so important. The tours, the stuff that rugby is famous for, that attracts people to it, because that is what is important about. And then even in the younger age groups, the relationships that people build by going out, having a good time, doing like socials, going on tours and stuff like that. You get to know somebody through doing that. You get to know somebody through every Sunday after a game coming up, wearing the exact same tie as them, sitting down and having some food next to them. You build relationships out of that. And then because of that, you get jobs out of that. My first ever job was packing up stationery equipment for a company called Durable. Guess who was the CEO of that company? My first aider that I met in this very room after a game. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be at college. And he was like, I'll give you a job. Come and get a job. There you go. Because you build that relationship with somebody, and the opportunities you get through it are amazing. Really are.
So Mike Ford mentioned when we asked him about what the youngsters, what he'd hope young players would get from rugby. He mentioned the fact that grassroots rugby is where rugby lives and breathes. And if you're talking about culture, Premier League's not the culture of rugby. Premier League is the elite. It's the pin-up. It's the poster. It's what people see as rugby on the surface. But the culture lives and breathes through grassroots. If you're paid to go and do something, then it's a job. And I'm, as I say, as we've mentioned before, people that get paid to go and play their own sports. Wow, what an achievement. But the culture is in grassroots. Absolutely is where it lives and breathes. And it creates these players that go and get paid for playing.
Couldn't agree more.
So what have you learnt, Jay, from rugby that's helped you the most?
Literally, just what I just said is that everybody deserves a chance. Everybody has something to offer you. Everybody, it goes back to what Victor was saying, always take a business card. And I love that. But everybody's got something to offer. Build a relationship with everybody. Not everybody gets on. That is fact. There are people at the rugby club who I'd go for a beer with, but I wouldn't go on holiday with. Do you know what I mean? It's people like, but I can't think of many bad people that are involved in rugby.
No.
I would just say that take the thing that it's hard to explain, because I know I bang on about relationships, and my friends must get bored of hearing it, because when they're like, oh no, I can't be bothered to go and speak to that person, I'm like, you have no idea what that person is going to say. What that person could say could change your life. He could offer you something that you have absolutely no idea. She could bring something to the table that you never ever thought was possible. They could do anything for you. And it's so important to go and, chat and have just a conversation with somebody, because you have no idea. That conversation you have with them could mean everything to them. And I hope people do take that away. And it has helped me so much in the way of that. Yes, I started doing the relationship building within rugby. I do that everywhere now. And it has just brought so much to my life and so much to other people's lives, that is what has helped me the most, is understanding people and being able to talk to people and building relationships with people. What about you, James?
I think rugby taught me probably that life's really fucking tough, really tough. But if you don't ever come up against anything tough, you're not going to get stronger. People talk about stress being a big killer, but every single one of us, well, not every single one of us, so many of us go down the gym and put our bodies under stress. Why? Because the body responds and becomes stronger. So when you stand on a rugby pitch and you're up against an opposition, for that time, you're under stress. And that opponent is trying to better you, trying to do you damage, trying to get one over on you. And personally, in our in personal life and in business, enough people have tried to screw me over. Enough people have tried to better me. That's competition. And competition isn't bad. Competition's a good thing. For everybody in my business that is a competitor of mine, I thank them, because if I didn't have those competitors, our company wouldn't be as good as it is. My other half, she's fantastic at what she does. And the two of us, we're only a small company because we don't need to be big because of the way we operate. But, often we'll bring 10 or 12 companies and 5 or 6 to 10 suppliers all together on a project. Everyone's working together. And if everyone's working together, nothing's going to stop us. We went through a pandemic where you couldn't get materials and you couldn't get labor and you couldn't get whatever. And we had a review from a client that said, they were a godsend. When we couldn't get materials or labor, they managed to find a way of doing it, and we do it through teamwork with everybody. But there are others that are quoting against us. There are others that are trying to do it better than us. And I thank everyone that's an opponent of mine personally, us as a company, on the rugby pitch, whatever. Because if I didn't have an opposition, I wouldn't get better. We wouldn't get better. They wouldn't get better. And to me, that's respect. And to see two teams on a rugby pitch batter the hell out of each other, make each other bleed, break each other, and then afterwards they applaud each other off the pitch, go and have a beer and some grub together. They might not be the best of friends, but the respect that's there, that's taught me more than I've done executive coaching and received executive coaching, and I'm in my late 40s now, sadly, but nothing's taught me more than that has. No matter what you're doing in life, yes, you'll come up against people that are opposition. Thank them for it. Be respectful, because they've made you better and you've made them better. Whether you hate them or whether they hate you or not, be thankful and grateful for it. Absolute respect all the way. I love it. Love it, love it.
Awesome.
I've really enjoyed this, Jay.
Yeah, it's been
really
great.
Enjoyed this. Been wanting to do this for a while, actually.
Yeah, no guests got in the way, so.
Really excited about some new guests coming on. we've got some, I say, hopefully some girls and some guys that are keen to come on the podcast. Be nice to have them in person because it's just easier in person than it is on Zoom. Plus, I get twitchy on Zoom after the losing Harry Baz business. I can't believe how well the podcast's gone and been received. Just 6 games in, or podcasts, or whatever you want to call them. I've loved it, and now I did that. I clipped up that trailer. I can't believe the great stuff that was on it. It's on the podcast sites, by the way. Listen to it, and I tried to keep it as short as possible, thinking it was going to be a couple of minutes. I couldn't get it under 5 minutes of great content from the guests we've had so far, and that was without Mike Ford and Victor Abogu. We hadn't done them at the time. So I'm over the moon with the way it's gone, and it's been great doing it with you as well. I'm really looking forward to some more guests.
Definitely. Awesome.
So everybody get involved. As I say, follow us, subscribe, or however it works, do whatever you need to. It's on all the it's all on all the podcast sites. It's on YouTube. It's on all of the social media sites. Find us at Be More Rugby. If you want to get in touch with us, email us at info@BeMoreRugby. And yeah, looking forward to some more.
Awesome.
Till then, Be More Rugby. Thank you, Jay.
Cheers, James.